Welcome to People Are the Point. I'm your host, Mark Concannon. Let's talk about the people.
Hello. My name is David Heidinger. I am your guest host on People Are the Point, a podcast by Mark Concannon, your regular host. And we're joining you guys today in Seattle, Washington to get to know Mark and what the podcast is going to be about. Mark, thanks so much for having me here.
Thank you, David, for joining today. This is great.
So I noticed when we come out here, you have such a beautiful space that you get to spend your time and think about. And I'm just curious about how the environment that you surround yourself in helps drive the rest of your day and how it kind of prepares you for how you get started.
Sure. So I think a first step is always I enjoy, especially the nature here in Seattle, these beautiful views of the mountain range. It gives me a sense of the openness, the space to think, the space to give myself the opportunity to what does the day hold, how do we get oriented, and charge for that new direction each day. And then around me, I always like to have the art that gives us a reminder of the beauty in life that goes beyond just nature, but also what we create and bring into our lives as well.
That's wonderful. And I think what we bring into our lives is also driven by the people in our lives. We're going to get to those people in our lives, but I want to hear about how this all started. You're the CEO and founder of Concannon Business Consulting, but you weren't always the CEO and founder of Concannon Business Consulting. Your journey started before that. So tell us about how you started in consulting.
Sure. So honestly, I kind of lucked into it. So when I first got started, I was interviewing for coding jobs, looking at DBA positions, a number of very technical roles when I was coming out of college. And this organization, Grant Thornton, happened to have it wasn't even called CRM yet. Customer Relationship Management didn't exist yet. We were doing call center work for customer support. And they pulled me in. I started on learning new technologies, the ones that don't even exist anymore, been rolled up into the big machines, into Oracle or Salesforce, and found a passion for getting to show up, focus on a specific problem, solve that problem, get that technology and the technology and the processes and all the pieces and the people trained and the adoption in place, and then go to the next problem. I just really found I enjoyed that problem-solving activity, and it stuck. So lucked into it and found it to be something that was really enjoyable.
So you got good at solving problems, which is something that people are always interested in having help with. That grew. You moved from Grant Thornton into additional consulting capacity.
Correct. Yeah, so then I went to Arthur Andersen. Great organization, great people. I did find, though, that as my career grew there, it wasn't the right fit for me, and I went back to Grant. And I was fortunate enough to then be charged with running a practice. So I moved to Dallas, was serving big organizations, primarily oil and gas at the time, again doing CRM in its early days, and integrations over to the ERP and a number of other moving parts. So really complex, large-scale programs, which was exciting, again, big problems. And I got to work with some amazing people. And so it was great to have the clients, it was great to have the people. And then a couple of years later, I kind of figured out really too often in the big consulting firms of any sort, the money is the point. Too much of it becomes, how much can I get out of this client? Not, have I solved the right problem, or is this the way they should be solving the problem? It's all about maximizing profit, maximizing revenue out of that client, which is good business in some sense, but I truly believe the good business is if the client succeeds, then we succeed, versus if the client pays me enough, I succeed. So that shift in mentality became a conflict for me in my career inside the firms, which is why I started my own firm. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to be freelance to start. I'm going to go figure this out. And sure enough, putting the clients first gave me opportunity to hire new people. Putting those people first ended up allowing me to build my organizations, what we are today, working on amazing technology at big organizations.
So I'm curious how you made the jump, because I think today's day and age, there's a lot of conversations about people wanting to be entrepreneurial and entrepreneurial thinking, and I think that that's wonderful, but you end up with a gap between the thinkers and the doers, where you have entrepreneurs, people who want to be an entrepreneur, but they can't make the leap or let go or take on the risk. What was your thought process and your approach to finally saying, okay, I'm going to leave maybe some of the safety and stability of the known world, and I'm going to be an entrepreneur?
So I think the first advantage I had was it's something that I figured out that I wanted to do early, right? So I was still, barely over 30. And so I was at a spot where I wasn't married, didn't have children, didn't have mortgages, didn't have commitments. So the risk was really low, right? So if it didn't work out, the worst case scenario, I'd just go back to a normal corporate job or another consulting job. But that's not what happened, right? So I was fortunate to take a chance, jumped up there and tried. And I think that the problem is when people are like, I want to be an entrepreneur. What does that really mean, right? What you really want is, what is something that I do well and I want to do more of? And I want to do it for myself, right? And that's really where my entrepreneur started. It wasn't, I want to be an entrepreneur. It was, I want to be able to focus on the things I think are most important. And I did that on my own, right? And then that grew into something as a byproduct of good work, not as a result of a goal to be an entrepreneur.
On the entrepreneurial journey, what do you think you struggled with the most, especially at the beginning?
Well, that question is doing it alone. So I've tried a couple times to have some business partners. Usually it hasn't worked out. And the biggest piece is that, again, my focus is absolutely the people first. And from that will come profit and success. A lot of individuals are more about how do we, again, get the most out of that client or work that person as hard as I can and not necessarily reward them appropriately for the hard work. So the biggest thing was doing it alone. And then knowing that, I've tried to find people to work with. Now it's finding the right partner to fit with that has similar objectives and that we can succeed together. So what we're working on now is how do we grow that out of the inside of the organization rather than trying to find somewhere else where people like yourself are trying to say, how can you help us and be a leader? That's what we want to do, is mentor these people through up. And then we have those partners that we're growing up through this culture with that right priority.
And that makes sense. When you surround yourself with great people, then the ability to build those people up is just kind of naturally follows. So how have you found those great people, right? Is it people that you've worked with in the past? How has that affected the people you work with today? What does that dynamic look like?
Sure. It's a combination, right? So we have an executive in Dallas. She and I worked together back at Hitachi, whatever it was, 20-some years ago. And I was fortunate enough to catch her when she was between some things going on with career questions, and she wasn't sure what she wanted to do next. And then she came on board, and that's been amazing. But really, how do I find them? In every case, one of our employees early on said, the number one asset I have for finding new people is my current people. I completely agree. So that's how we've structured our recruiting and our retention is, our head of recruiting was a consultant for us for a long time before she converted over to bring people in. And a piece of our process is talk to other people in our organization so that we can, make sure it's a good culture fit, the right priorities are in your mind, that you see what we're offering and why we're offering it. So I think that's really it, is our people are also how we get the best people.
Good. When we talk about people are the point. When did you realize, kind of in your professional capacity or career, that was the focus you wanted, right? Was this something that you knew coming out of college? Did you develop it in high school? Was it something you figured out after your first couple of years in the corporate world? When did you say people are really what matter?
I think that was, there's a point where it was conscious and there was a point where it was unconscious.
Okay, so like the light bulb moment.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So the unconscious was when I was at Anderson and I was like, hey, they're inviting me on a partner track. There's a bunch of smart, wonderful people, but I just don't feel like I fit. It's not the right path for me, and I didn't know why I didn't feel like I fit. It was later when I thought back on that transition, and when I started my firm, that I realized, I didn't fit because my priorities are different. My priorities are the people, right? My priorities are empowering people to take on the challenges that invigorate them and that grow in a direction they want to pursue versus pushing folks into something that is the work we can sell today, right? And it's, yes, we need to have work we can sell, but we should build it around people that want to do that work. Not forcing people into a path, which was very common in those days, is pulling people out of ERP and pushing them into CRM. And that wasn't really their background. It wasn't their passion. They loved working with warehouses. And now you're asking them to manage a call center. It just wasn't the right match.
And the conscious moment was the reflection of that unconscious understanding, which is probably the importance of reflection more broadly, right? People stop and think about the things they've done in the past.
Yeah, completely agree.
When you talk about people and culture, how do you continue to build and instill that inside your own organization and, of course, the people that you work with, the clients that your organization supports?
Yeah. So there's a question in the middle of that that's a challenge we always have, which is our clients' culture is often different than ours, and yet we're there to serve them. So one piece of consulting is always to be present and similar, but not the same. And that's okay, right? We don't have to be the same. And so one, I try hard to lead by example. Two, then through my leadership team, pushing them to constantly hold up the level that we are looking for. And three, encourage our team to keep the communication open and make sure that we know if there's challenges with the culture at the client, that we're working to resolve that, work with the client for the outcomes they want. Right? We still need to deliver the project or deliver the pieces of promise, but we also need to make sure we all succeed together. Right? And so there's sometimes this push and pull with the client. It's not always easy. So I think that's the big piece is lead by example, recruit the people that are going to fit into what we're trying to do as an objective, keep the leadership team on focus as well, and then go negotiate with clients to make sure we're both successful.
All right. When you talk about all of this work and the information I think you want to distill and share with the audience, when people listen to People Are the Point, what is the takeaway that you want them to have or that they think they're going to get when they tune into these episodes?
Sure. So I think, first of all, I'll be looking to show the human side of these executives. We've got a few CEOs that are going to be coming on. You know, they have long, successful careers, obviously, to get to that level in their industry or their organization. And sometimes when you interact with them on business, it's business. So the first part is I want us to see, you know, we are all humans here, right, in these jobs, in these roles. That absolutely influences our careers and our objectives and our day-to-day execution, and then talk about those pieces. How does it translate into their challenges or current undertakings? And so that's the goal. We are human, and here's how it translates in business, and that's what we should just have focused on for long-term success.
So that's going to be the thing that keeps people coming back week after week. As they look forward to future episodes, are there any in particular people that you're really excited to speak with or topics that you can't wait to kind of just dive into and dissect?
Sure. I think the big ones I'm excited about for topics wise is business. While people are the point, it's a symbiotic relationship between the individual and the entity, and that the reverse is true as well. If the people are the point, that is to show up every day, take on your responsibilities, drive for the best you can perform, and make sure that you're carrying your portion of the success, right? So we are what is the old saying? The chain is only as strong as weak as link. Mm-hmm. So each of us are responsible as a link to show up and contribute as well. So don't forget, you aren't contributing. It's the people around you that you're going to have to carry. So you got to show up and do your part to make sure you keep that level of performance high. And work with your other team members so that we all, again, succeed together. I think talking that through and exploring where there is sort of a breakdown, you could go back to maybe the 50s and it was you get hired and you get hired for life, right? That is over, right? Yeah. And now, and it's both sides. Both corporations are looking at people like numbers, but also people are like, corporation, you're not that important to me. I'm not going to be loyal. I'm not going to, because you're not loyal to me, right? So how can we build a new social construct that better reflects not the extreme gig economy where every minute you're hustling and charging somebody different for your minute, but also, it's not going to be life anymore, right? So how do we find that spot in between as a society that, again, the people aren't data points, the people aren't just numbers, the people are folks that are mothers and brothers and sisters and children, and how do we help them in the long term as a group, as a society, but sticking with the individual contribution, individual reward, but also not mercenary.
And it sounds like billing for the second is not the path that we want to move towards, right? Like that becomes very challenging for everybody to try and move in that very gig-centric economy. And what I'm hearing you say is that only maximizing profit ends up being a mistake because you lose that talent aspect of your people, and they if they are just charging for the second, if it's only about money, they're going to go try and maximize that the same way that the company is. What struck me is very interesting at CBC is you have very long tenured employees. What is it about the CBC culture that has kept people around for multiple years and in some cases decades to say, no, this is the work-life balance I like. I like the work that we get to do and the culture that they're building here.
So I think there's two parts. One, we are fortunate that while we might be a smaller boutique firm and our brand might not be known in the marketplace like an Accenture or Deloitte, we do get to work on some of the biggest clients in the world and on bleeding edge activities, autonomous cars, flying taxis. So as our artificial intelligence now, of course, being so hot and in that space, so we get to work on great projects. But to your point, we foster a better work-life balance than if you went to Google and did it. You're going to get pushed a lot harder, but you still get the chance. You still have your family. You still get to go home. You still get to have a life for yourself and work on exciting new things. So I think that's a lot of what keeps people here. And then back to, but also in every organization, there are jobs that aren't fun, right? So we still need to try to take the people too that are working on things that are a little more mundane. You're just doing contracts work, might not be as exciting as, negotiating with an autonomous car company. But even the contracts person needs to be given opportunities to be engaged, grow, have work-life balance, and have reward in the space. So it's work-life balance. It's high-credentialed clients, challenging work, and still rewarding at the end to have those pieces come together.
I think what I've really enjoyed is that everybody reframes it in the why, right, of their work. It's not, well, I'm doing X, Y, and Z, and it's like the nuts and bolts of the activity. It's I'm performing this work to support this goal, and everything is so tied to a vision or an end state that I think it really lets them dive into the work. It doesn't matter how mundane or not mundane it is. They go, well, this is what I'm working towards, right? They get that excitement of the why.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I think what we want to be showing is we're not just a little cog spinning, but there is a bigger machine, and what is your role in that machine, and what is the outcome that we're all working towards together? Absolutely.
Well, thanks so much for the conversation today. Is there anything you want to leave the audience with as you go on to this process of building out the podcast that you're looking forward to as you get started?
Sure. Thank you, David. It absolutely is. One of the big pieces is that I'm really excited about taking this process, exploring the concepts of humanizing the executive. How does that apply to their business? How do they see the world going further in the future? And how do we build together? And being part of this and sharing it through the pod is very exciting. And happy to take on this adventure.
All right. Thanks, y'all.